Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Take a Shot podcast. We don't have shots, but we have beer. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
I don't know how I feel about that. Peach? I don't know.
It's like tea. It'll
Yeah.
grow on you.
Yeah.
It's like tea or
It'll
something.
grow on you.
Okay, so NBA season just wrapped up in this last week, so we want to kind of do a deep dive about our thoughts on maybe the season as a whole, but in general, just the Nuggets winning a championship. So, Jeffrey, we'll start with you. So, what do you think about Jokic finally winning a ring?
Yeah, I mean, you can put him in consideration of obviously, one of the greatest big men, at least. I mean, we talk about Mount Rushmores of the NBA. I don't think he's there yet.
Some people are putting him there.
Yeah, I don't,
Some people are crazy.
Yeah.
you gotta have a little bit longer career and more consistency, to me at least. But yeah, it just goes to show, like guys like Embiid that are in the league right now. I mean, I think we talked about earlier out there in Phoenix,
DeAndre Ayton.
Ayton. I mean, it's just
He's got all the skills. He just doesn't have the attitude to put it together and be like, I'm going to dominate and do this. He doesn't.
well, and even then, Anthony Davis, with the injuries. I mean, it's like you don't. Back in the day when it was Shaq, you know what I mean, Kevin Garnett, like some of these bigger guys, you can almost revolve things around them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of almost spectacular to see the way the NBA's changed. To see a guy like Jokic and, be a facilitator, be a scorer, defense, rebound. I mean, he's a five-tool,
Yeah.
Five-tool player, if not even more than that. And how smart he is, and just, I mean, that's one of the few guys. It always seems like it's a scorer, like John Morant, LeBron, that you have to revolve things around. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, so on and so forth.
The game's just changed,
Yeah,
too.
and to see Jokic, actually be like that, overall. He was MVP. It shouldn't have been Embiid, but yeah, just how much talent
beg
that
to
guy
differ.
has and everything like that. I mean, it's phenomenal to watch him, and I hope, he has a successful, long career doing this. So.
As far as the MVP goes, I would agree with you in the sense of I think Embiid, maybe he should have won last year, so I'm okay with him getting one finally. But as far as there's this gap between like Jokic and Embiid were the two best centers for a long time, and now it's like there's clearly this gap where Jokic, people are going to jerk off to his passing, and his passing's great and all that, and that's probably the reason why they were able to make it as far as they did. But there is something to be said about the consistency that Jokic was like, every night I'm going to at least give you this much and this much. And I thought that was great. There's not really a way to stop him. You let him sag at the three-point line, he'll shoot a three. He shot like 47% or something like that. If you leave him open at the mid-range, he can do like a Dirk fadeaway on you. If you leave him too close, he can do like just a little pot shot, whatever, to put it in. He can post up. His passing's great. His vision's good. His defense was good enough. It was good enough for them to win.
Right.
So, I think he showed he's the whole package. And you guys mentioned Anthony Davis. So for me, I'm like, Anthony Davis has amazing skills, great defensive player, better defensive player than Jokic. But it's like Anthony Davis is constantly jumping up to get a rebound, then he falls some weird way, and then he's like, I'm out. If you watch, Jokic doesn't really jump a whole lot. It's stationary, and I think, obviously, you're not going to get injured very often if you don't leave your feet. And I'm not saying every dude needs to do that, but, if your team really needs you, I would say, pick your spots. But Anthony Davis, I just feel like every time you're just watching him roll around, and you're like, oh, God, again.
Well, then sometimes you almost like a guy that's not too flashy. You know what I mean? I know the games in the NBA, even NFL, everywhere in sports, it seems like you want the flashy guy. You want the guy that, you know what I mean?
The Zion Williamson that can jump and do a 360 dunk and everything.
Like I said, John Morant, the way he plays, Luka Doncic, this and that. But yeah, Jokic just goes out there, knows his role. I mean, stats might be a little bit more padded nowadays because of the fact of, you'll see guys get more minutes and be able to take advantage of, okay, there's three guys around that could get a rebound, but they all kind of know that, maybe Jokic could be that guy to get the rebound, this and that. And so you can pad your stats, I feel like, a little bit more nowadays. But just that aspect. I mean, double-doubles, triple-doubles. Jokic, for a big man, it's all I don't know necessarily when the last time we've seen somebody that's able to...
Well, you talk about, pass, dribble, shoot, do everything as a big man?
And rebound. Like I said, triple-doubles just in general.
For a center, I guess you could. Shaq was not the passer that Jokic is, but Shaq is probably maybe what I would say is the closest in the sense of the last time we saw a guy that could, if you needed Shaq to dribble the ball up the court, he did have a little bit of handle. I mean, he messed around with it. It was kind of a joke. But yeah, Shaq in his prime, he could get up and down the court. Obviously, he was a beast, but it's not the same way as Jokic. Shaq couldn't like shoot from the 3-point line or anything like that. So
I mean, the only one for triple doubles I can think of is at least like on pace, I believe, off the top of my head, is like a guy like Draymond Green, but Draymond's not scoring 30 points.
no, Draymond's triple doubles are like I got you like 12, 11, and 10. And it's like
Exactly.
that's good, but for me, assists and points are not actually all three stats are not as hard to come by as they used to be. Rebounds, for instance, you used to actually have to get down there and battle for rebounds. Now you can watch a guy like Kevon Looney, for instance, who does a great job, puts in effort, but there was a game in the playoffs where he had like 20 or more rebounds, and if you watch the replay, the 3-point shots are just doinking off and kind of magically going to him.
Right.
It's not like he was, okay, it's going to go over. He literally was like, oh, cool, a
Had to
rebound.
battle for him
Yeah.
and everything.
So that's what most of the NBA is now, where occasionally you'll have a guy down low and fight for something, but for a lot of times it is just, it kind of went off the rim, went to me, cool, I got a rebound. Assists are harder now, easier now, just for the fact that there's more 3-point shooters. So basically, you can just literally pass the ball around the perimeter, don't do anything fancy, and the guy might make a shot, and that'll count as an assist. So it's a little different. Jokic obviously is great at passing. I'm not going to take away from that. And then points, defense isn't as hard anymore because you're not allowed to touch a guy anyway. I've been talking too much. I want your take.
I'm more of the casual at best NBA, fan of this group. And really for me, like just discussing the finals, it's kind of boring.
They were boring.
I mean, there was no real big storyline.
Well, I think we had brought that up. We had talked about that. I think the better matchup, obviously, was going to be Boston.
Yes.
And Denver. And it was a nice story for Miami, and it was all great, but it's like everything we see in sports. You know what I'm saying? It's always about the matchup, not necessarily the better or the best teams getting in there. It's always about the matchup.
Yeah.
And granted, you know what I'm saying, the Miami story was amazing. For Jimmy Butler to, you know what I'm saying, lead, like I said, like
Go back to another finals.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think I saw some crazy stat in the last 10 or 12 years. It's always been like it'd be every other like 2 years or something, either Miami
Or Golden State. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like since 2011,
Yeah.
one of them had been in the finals, and they've never met each other.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it was just a crazy stat line, but like that just goes to show like that organization. Like, I guess if I had to compare it to somebody, it would be like maybe like I guess like the Red Sox or something in baseball, because the Red Sox, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez. But even then, it seems like the Red Sox are still always competitive, and they're always
It's just
right there.
it's just
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
perfect-
yeah, we're basically like losing is not real. Like if you work for those organizations, you're never going to go to the owner and be like, "So we're going to tank this year." It's like they'd be like, "No, we're not.
We're not going to do
We're
that.
going to try the best we can to win the championship every year."
And I don't know if I had said that. I think I was rooting for Jimmy Butler just because of that aspect. I like him as a player. I think
I do too.
He's more dynamic than just a guy that's going to go out there and light up 40 points
Well,
for you, or Steph Curry
I
that just shoots threes all day long.
I think more than any other player, we can say with Jimmy Butler, he has gotten 110% out of what his ceiling was.
Right.
Oh, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah.
When he first came into the league,
Right.
he was the second round pick, I think, almost.
Either that or the 30th pick or something. But yeah, he was just like, hey, you'll be a good defensive player,
Right.
and maybe eventually you might get to a point where you can get like 15 points a game. But no one ever thought this dude could be your primary offensive option, not only get a team to the finals once as the best player, but twice. And Bam is good, but Bam isn't Jimmy Butler. Because
Right.
Jimmy, there's so many times where they got bailed out, where like Jimmy is like, okay, that guy's not knocking down shots, or he's covered, whatever. Bam's kind of doing his own thing. And Jimmy would be like, just give me the ball down low and I'll find a way to put it in the basket.
Right.
Well, and Jimmy's done that, not taking teams to the finals, but he's done this for multiple teams. Like everywhere he's been a very good producer in any offense that you put him in.
Philadelphia made a huge mistake, just like going, yeah, you can go to Miami, that's all good.
Yeah.
They should have, because it was basically, if they would have let Tobias Harris walk, or they would have traded Tobias Harris, they could have kept Jimmy Butler on that team with Embiid and at the time Simmons. But
And then, that's probably your favorite coming out of the East
Yeah.
with that group.
yeah,
Yeah, potentially.
that Philly team was loaded, and that when they got stopped was that 2019 year in the second round against Kawhi and the Raptors.
Which Kawhi was just on a different level
Yeah,
that year.
and now, which we can talk about that at some point, but the Clippers looks like they're kind of screwed with their situation, because it looks like you're never going to get a season where Kawhi and Paul George are healthy together. That's just not going to happen. So, kind of back to the Nuggets, everything that they did. So I've heard from a lot of analysts that basically say that this Nuggets team kind of shows that you can build a team organically, not make any major crazy trades, not forfeit your future. Because far as I know, the Nuggets pretty much have most of their picks. I think the only ones they may have to give up is in the Aaron Gordon trade a few years ago. They traded for Orlando. I think Orlando might have one of their picks still remaining, but I don't know. But this is the best I've ever seen Aaron Gordon play because I've been a fan of like what the Magic were trying to build, and like he never showed this on the Magic. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if you give up a few draft picks to make that move, and that's the move that puts you over the top, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know,
which is what I've said about the Rams with Stafford. You guys were arguing with me about that.
well, it's a little. I think it's slightly different in the NFL because those picks are just worth a little bit more because there's only in the NBA 60 players drafted compared to the NFL. There's just so much more.
Right, and in the NBA, it's like basically the top 14 picks are really the only ones that matter, and everybody else is kind of like you might get lucky every couple drafts where you get somebody late, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the 2014 and 15 Royals. They traded away basically every asset that they had in their farm system, but
to capitalize on the situation.
Yeah, but it brought a championship home. If they don't make those trades for Zobrist and Cueto, then they don't win the World Series. So at some point, it's that risk versus reward, and for the Nuggets in this scenario, it paid off in the long game.
I would say anytime you manage to win a championship in any sport, obviously you did the right thing. The whole question is there are, I guess, some cases where like, like with the Patriots, they had a really long window with Brady, right? Mm-hmm. There were times where they made bigger moves, like Randy Moss or whatever, and it didn't end up in a championship. But there were other championship teams, like let's say the last one they won in 2018, where they beat the Rams and it was low scoring. They didn't really make a whole lot of moves to get that done. It was basically just like, let's run back the same roster and see what happens. And it was good enough, although they should have lost to us, but AFC Championship game.
Well, once again, I think it just always comes back to, matchups. Like I said, I mean, if you think about, and not to be like, oh, I didn't see this coming, but you know what I'm saying? I think at the beginning of the playoffs, it was like, wow, there was probably like in the West region, there was like at least like 5 or 6 teams that you could have made an argument for who's going to
make it out of the West.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The Kings were hot. Mm-hmm. They had all those young stars. I mean, obviously you have the defending champs, the Warriors. I mean, you have
Suns.
Like I said, I mean,
Suns,
never
Lakers,
count out LeBron.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Grizzlies maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Certain circumstances.
If they wouldn't have lost to the Lakers, you could make it argument they would have made it past maybe.
Morant wouldn't have got hurt too. I think he had like a thumb injury or something like
that. Yeah.
But just little things. There was like 5 or 6 teams out of the West that you were like, oh my god. But then when it's all said and done, you kind of look back and you're like, okay, well the Warriors are kind of aging. You know what I'm saying? These Curry and Thompson and Green aren't 20-something anymore.
Well, it's basically become like the Curry show.
Right.
And it's like Clay, maybe one every 5 games actually looks like old Clay Thompson, but
yeah, it's not the Splash Bros anymore. It's just the Splash guy.
I used to despise Curry more, but now I'm like, I respect Curry for what he does. And now it's like I look at Clay, and like I said, I don't see Curry ever holding up 4 fingers being like, I've won 4 rings, you can't talk crap to me. Curry will be like, okay, all right, I'll hear you, but I'll come back and I'll do something. Clay just like, yeah, I just had 3 games straight in the playoffs where I got less than 10 points, but yeah, I have 4 rings. It's like, you're a loser. I'm sorry. I'm not saying like compared to us, but like compared to the NBA players, if you're not performing well and your response is instead of being like, yeah, I need to get back in the gym or I need to get better, you're like, well, I'm a 4-time champion. Cool. Draymond's a 4-time champion. He thinks he's like a top like 10 or 15 player in the league. The dude's out of his mind. Like, I'm sorry, but winning a championship, Robert Horry has 7. I guess he's better than Michael Jordan. So
right.
None of this crap makes any sense to me. But anyway.
No, I think just, like I said, the matchups coming out of there, because then once all said and done, it was all like, okay, so then you have the aging LeBron, and you have so many, unknowns on that team besides him and Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember what's his name stepped up.
Austin Reeves.
Reeves.
Or D'Angelo Russell.
Not necessarily Russell. Who's the other one? He always came off the bench.
Rui Hachimura?
Yes, Hachimura. I mean, he showed up in a lot of games where, coming off the bench, scoring 20, if not 20 plus points, this and that. But once again, it's all like, after you kind of all said and done, it was all like, okay, maybe I was kind of almost like fooled by the aspect of like, matchup wise and who was the actual better team. Because then once again, it's all like out there in Phoenix, it's all like, well, Chris Paul, once again, he can't win a championship. He's not that guy that's going to lead your team to a championship. And granted, he's a phenomenal point guard, but when you have just as much as a young Devin Booker, You know what I'm saying? A veteran Chris Paul, a Kevin Durant that supposedly is this ultimate scorer, you know what I'm saying, is unguardable, this and that, and you can't even get to the finals.
That was Chris Paul's best chance at the final.
Well, can we segue into the trade? Because you just brought okay. So, breaking news from like 2 days ago: Chris Paul is part of a trade to get Bradley Beal.
Breaking news!
Live.
48 hours ago. You heard it here first.
heard
Or
it here.
71st.
He got traded for Bradley Beal and some other stuff, but basically, we'll talk. We do need to talk about Chris Paul first. So, as you said, he had a window, right? Like 2 years ago, two summers ago, summer 2021. They make it to the finals against the Bucks. People said they caught some breaks because of, I guess, the Clippers. That was the year that Kawhi got hurt in the playoffs. Right. I get that, but still, Chris Paul played out of his mind in the conference finals against the Clippers. So I think that's his best moment. Like, he earned that, and him and Devin Booker were trading off who the best player was every game. And then they didn't win that finals. They were up 2-0, but then they lost 4 straight to the Bucks. Last year, they make it to the second round and lose by like 40 points to the Mavericks in Game 7. That was an embarrassment. And then this year, like you said, you get Kevin Durant, but the problem is Chris Paul, and I like him as a player, I do, but you got to be honest, it's like when you're getting like maybe 10 points a game, 8 points a game, like in these playoffs, it's like, yeah, it was like nut up or shut up, and it's like you just didn't do anything, man. So yeah, it's like I don't blame the Suns for being like, look, Chris, we love you. If we could have kept you for like $5 million a year, $10 million a year, we would have loved to have you, but your contract's crazy, and like we're trying to win a championship, and if that's all you can give us, it's like that's not good enough. Like,
well, and it's just like I think I talked to Caleb about it not too long ago. Chris Paul seems like he's always that guy to, if there's young talent or rebuild, or there's talent to be, you know what I'm saying?
Makes them great.
Yes.
Turns them into
Like,
professionals.
what was it, the Thunder, when he almost had his resurgence,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, for that trade with, I think, Russell
He was there. He was there 1 year,
Yeah.
and they made it to the playoffs, and they lost to the Rockets in the first round. But I think that went 7 games.
But just the fact that,
Yeah.
just the fact that you were just like,
One of
you
the
know
better
what I'm saying?
playoff
Yeah.
series.
That you were all like, oh, this team literally has nothing besides Chris Paul at the time.
It was like Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think their third best player was like Dennis Schroeder.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's all like, and then he did the same thing with the Suns.
Yeah,
He's
the following year they make it all the way to the finals. Yeah,
Don't forget Cole Aldridge was on that team.
in the bubble team.
No.
Okay, I was thinking.
Who are we talking about?
Yeah, you know Cole.
Yeah, never heard of him.
Yeah. Well, you call yourself an NBA fan.
But yeah, I agree with you that like if Chris Paul so hypothetically he's going to the Wizards right now as long as something major didn't happen. But I don't know if he's going to stay on the Wizards. They might buy him out and let him go sign somewhere else. But if he did go stay on the Wizards, yeah, I think he could possibly turn them into professionals where they could, you know, make it to the playoffs. I agree with you. They're probably not winning a championship for Porzingis and Kuzma, but like it's just Chris Paul needs to find something where it's like he's not expected to score a whole lot, just run the offense.
Now, the question that I have is on the flip side of that trade, does adding Beal to the Suns, does that make them the favorite in the West now?
No.
Or do you still think
No.
the Nuggets are still...
Because what Phoenix needed, I don't think was like I don't think bench is as important as everybody else, but my thing is you got to have like 1 or 2 guys, and right now it's like, so if you ship Chris Paul out, does this mean you're playing Devin Booker at the 1? Because he's not a 1.
Yeah.
He's a shooting guard. He gets the ball, he looks to score, that's what he does. You're not setting anybody up with Devin Booker. Bradley Beal is not a setup guy. He's a shoot first, shoot second, shoot third. You give him the ball, he's going to shoot it. He's not setting anybody
So now
up.
you got 3 shooters and no true facilitator.
Correct. And honestly, their best facilitator right now might be Kevin Durant, just because Kevin at least has the basketball savvy to go, okay, I'm not just going to jack up a zillion shots. He'll try to get people involved. But yes, they have Cam Payne. I like Cameron Payne as a backup point guard. I think he can be really good off your bench. He has some nights, like their game that they lost where they got beat by the Nuggets and were out of the playoffs. I think he was the only guy that showed up and actually scored. I think he got like 24 or 25 points in that game. But yeah, I like him as a backup. So I think they still need a point guard to run that team. I do. And you can have Cam Payne off your bench. Personally, I would do, I think I saw the projected lineup and they're having Kevin Durant play the 4, Torrey Craig or if it was Josh Okogie play the 3. I'd say screw that. Devin Booker's your 2. Bradley Beal, play him at the 3. He's a bigger 2 guard. He can play the 3. Durant at the 4. DeAndre Ayton at your 5. Just try to pick up, like, I would try to bring Ricky Rubio back. Get a guy like that basically can run your offense, be pass first, can... I think he's good. He's still got some speed even after the injury.
Well, maybe, they're not done making moves. Maybe Aton could be on his way out, and they could
DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, and they could make a move for one of the better point guards in the league.
I've heard of that. That basically that's their only window of like possibly getting some flexibility again. My whole thing is, I like DeAndre Ayton has he really does. He has all the talent in the world to be like, as in my opinion, maybe it's not as good a footwork, but like he should be like the third best center in the league behind Embiid and Jokic. He has that ability.
Yeah, and that's what they drafted him to be.
Right. He's got touch. He can make a 3-point shot if you leave him open. He's got a good mid-range shot. He can block shots, and he can rebound and dunk. He just plays. He plays like he's like 6'2".
He has not been as advertised when he was coming out of Arizona.
It's mentality. He's got a real like. I think he needs to work with like. And I'm not saying Shaq could help him as far as like physically because Shaq's older, but he needs to like sit down and like talk with Shaq about and how Shaq had a mentality of like, I'm going to dominate this game. I'm getting 28 points. I'm getting like 15 rebounds. I'm getting that. You ain't stopping me.
You know what Shaq could help him with? Selling some pizza and some insurance.
Well, that too. He could be like, you're
jacking up.
You're jacking up on your merchandising. But yeah, if they keep DeAndre Ayton, he needs to retool the way he thinks. If they choose to trade him, I do think you can get something for him. But you got to hope, like the team that trades for him, they have to hope that like whatever your coaching situation was, you guys aren't getting the most out of him. We can do it.
And maybe just a change of scenery. I mean, we see that with a lot of players across multiple sports. That change of scenery is it works for them.
Yeah.
In that aspect too, because he was a top 3 pick as well.
He's number one overall. 22. He was taking over Luka Doncic.
So you got to think about that. You know what I mean?
They made a mistake there.
He came in with nothing. I think maybe Devin Booker was on that.
Devin Booker was already on the team, but yeah, you're right. There was like nothing else on that roster.
He was supposed to be the guy that changed that. Kind of
they were supposed to be the 1-2 Shaq Kobe punch.
Exactly. And so now all of a sudden you got Kevin Durant, you got Chris Paul, now you got Bradley Beal. Now you're not the 1-2 punch. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's just that aspect of like going from, hey, you're going to be the future of this franchise to now you have to be the big role player. And they don't need him to score 20 and 12 rebounds.
You talking about Ayton?
Yeah, but they just need like 14 consistent, you know what I'm saying?
They need him to do kind of what, like, I'm not saying he's better than Kevon Looney as far as what he can do, like his upside, but Kevon Looney fits the perfect role for the Warriors. We need a guy that's going to dominate the glass, and basically, if you don't have an easy putback shot, pass it out. DeAndre Ayton has more offensive game. He could definitely get more points. But yeah, it's like we got guys that can shoot.
Yeah.
We need you to set screens, rebound, block shots. That's what we need, and we should be feeding you.
It's just a lot harder to be that guy sometimes whenever all of a sudden, your role and your position in the organization changes because, some guys are always ready for that moment. You know what I'm saying? We talk about guys like, Marcus Smart or, you know what I mean, like when they were winning championships, like Andre Iguodala, you know what I'm saying, showing up for big moments, things like that. And so Ayton, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot harder to like always be prepared and ready for those scenarios than actually getting the touches every night and always getting the ball and so on and so forth. To go from 20 touches to all of a sudden now you're getting like 8 and you have to be that proficient at those touches, it's a little bit different.
I think
basketball's rhythm too.
Yeah, right. But I think we learned, like, let's take this last year with Aaron Gordon on the Nuggets. What did we learn from him? Yeah. If you put him in the right situation and with the proper role, he can flourish because he really played well as like, I'm your third best player where I'm going to, because he was guarding Pete really well. Like he was playing really good defense, but he was getting you consistent buckets and he wasn't like making any major mistakes. So for me, I thought he was their third best player. Some people could maybe say like KCP or Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr., his 3-point shot comes and goes. Sometimes it was great. And other times it was like, dude, where were you? But for me, I think if you take Ayton, I don't think they should trade him. I just think they need to try one last time with like the new coach, which, by the way, I do think the Suns, I think they actually did a really good job coaching, getting Frank Vogel. Because Vogel got fired from the Lakers just because it's the Lakers. It's like, you've had 2 bad years. And he's like, well, Anthony Davis and LeBron have been hurt. Yeah. And he's like,
you didn't win a championship.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Frank Vogel didn't forget how to coach. He was good enough to get them to win a championship. And I think he's a great defensive coach. So I think he's going to help there. But on top of that, I think he could get DeAndre Ayton to buy into like, we're going to get you more touches. We're going to because that's the whole thing. A big guy that has that talent, they don't run as hard. Shaq talks about it all the time. You're not going to run as hard as you never see the ball. You need the ball every now and again to be like, okay, I'm still a factor in this. But yeah, I think you can remotivate him and possibly rewire him. And if one last chance it doesn't happen, trade him in the offseason or trade him at the trade deadline if you need to. But to talk about what this does for the Suns with Bradley Beal, does it make them favorites? I would say no. You still got to go with Denver just because how easily Denver dismantled everybody.
And then easily, like you said, I think it's just like almost like they're out in Dallas with the Mavericks. Yeah, you got Kyrie, but does it mesh well? Does it actually come together? Like you
Kyrie's got to
said,
be gone out of that team.
like you said,
I don't know.
whether it's the factors of Ayton not playing up to his, ability and being that guy. Now they don't have a point guard that's a facilitator. I mean, there's just so many question marks. And then once again, do they have a bench? Who's coming off the bench to score?
I read that they have 5 guys on the roster. It's the top 4 guys: Ayton, Booker, Durant, Beal, and then they have Cameron Payne. That's like everybody else is a free agent.
Yeah.
Which actually may not. I don't know how much salary cap space they have. Probably not a whole lot, but that may not actually be that bad of a thing because there's not really any guy on that bench that was really worth a whole lot.
And granted, because you know what I'm saying, and not to transition too far off, but I thought about this the other day. But like, yeah, you don't necessarily have to have spectacular, role players. You don't always need to have what's his name? I think it was Lou Williams.
Yeah, you don't need the
You know
sixth
what
man
I'm
of the
saying?
year.
The sixth man of the year
Yeah.
every single year, this and that. Who was the other one for the Clippers?
Montrezl Harrell,
No.
Jamal Crawford back in the day.
Yes, Crawford.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was phenomenal, to see him come off.
That is crazy that they basically got back-to-back guys that were like 6 man. Yeah.
But in the same sense, I mean, like, look at championships where, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the only time I think I give, like, LeBron credit and stuff like that. Because he took guys like, what's his name? Deladova, Louis, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, technically, they did win a championship 2016. He was still on that roster, but yes, 2015. Once Kyrie and Kevin Love were hurt, I would say like J.R. Smith was their second best player.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I think I'll give LeBron credit for taking that team because it's like, but once again, LeBron was such a you know what I'm saying, like
A force.
Yes, impact player, blah blah blah. You can revolve it around him. And so that's what the difference is, I think, is between, you know what I'm saying, taking 3 All-Stars and not necessarily having all the role players to play their position. I mean, we just saw it with the Heat. You had your one guy that you revolved all around. And granted, is Jimmy Butler, Michael Jordan's son? I guess not.
There are
You know what I mean?
rumors
I guess
out
not.
there.
I guess not. But
You've heard those rumors, right?
Yeah, and when you do the side by side, it's like undeniable. It's like there's something there.
But obviously, yeah, like teams aren't too far off in the NBA. But once again, going back to the very first statement is it's always going to be about matchups. Because like I said, we looked at the West, we were like, oh man, there's so many teams. But then once you kind of like did the math and looking at everybody and the final results, it was all like, wow, there wasn't really a whole lot of actually competition, like for sure teams that you looked at.
No one could rival Denver. That's basically.
And the same thing with the East. I mean, that's why Boston came out and was like the dominant favorite in Vegas because it was all like, there's no one else. Because
They should have won
and trust
because
me,
they had
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
one of the best rosters this year.
Yeah.
Because you took last year's finals team and all you did was add Brogdon to it, and obviously Gallinari was hurt, never played. Like you added Brogdon to that finals roster. You didn't lose anybody important. You just added Malcolm Brogdon. He was great this year. He really was.
Who else was it out in the East?
Philadelphia.
I mean, Philly.
Boston, and then Miami. But I'm like, Miami was an 8th seed.
Well, like the
Who
Bucks.
was it? Who was in between?
The Bucks.
The Bucks.
But they
Okay,
lost.
Giannis got hurt.
But they
Yeah,
no,
that's
but
true.
not he.
Not hurt, but yeah.
Yeah, and
No, they just dropped the ball.
right. And I personally loved it because I'm not a Giannis fan. Like I like him as a person, but as a player, the way he plays of
Take advantage.
Well, and then what pisses me off about Giannis, like, not to go off on a big tangent here, but, that press conference after they lost, he's like, the reporter's like, did you think this year was disappointing? And he's like, well,
was it a failure?
yeah, was it a failure? And he was like, no, I wouldn't say it's a failure. You learn. And it's like, he's like, well, when you have a bad year as a journalist, was it a failure? And it's like, yeah. When you are the number 1 team and you're coming off of, because they won last year, right?
No, they won in 2021.
Yeah,
But
okay. But like you're the team that was to be beat, and you lose to the 8th seed. Like, no, that's a failure.
well, when you look at who was on the Bucks roster and who was on the Heat's roster, you're like, yeah, the Bucks should have won that. But yeah, Giannis was out for the first 3 games. He messed up his back, and I get that part. But my thing is, I like what Giannis said in the sense of long term, it's all like, yeah, you do have to grow and get better, and you straight up, you can't win the championship every year. LeBron's been a great player. He's won 4. Jordan was a great player, won 6. You don't win every year. Shaq was a great player. He only won 4.
And I'm not saying that the Bucks, if they win that
But,
series,
but
they
you're
go
right.
on.
It's like what were the expectations? And for you, like what you're saying, the Bucks. If you would have lost to the second round to like Boston in a 7-game series, people probably wouldn't give you that much crap. But you lost in the first round in 5.
Yeah. And it's like, then he calls out the reporter, like, if you have a bad year reporting, is it a failure? Yeah, like if you're supposed to write 10 stories and you only write 7, your boss is going to come to you and say that your year was a failure.
Right.
Like you didn't meet expectations.
Yeah.
I think talking like that, because you always want to stay positive. You don't want to pull Embiid and say me and Harden are the only guys and we can't do it by ourselves after losing to Boston. When you only scored, wait a second, if I looked at the game, you scored how many team total points? 80, 90 points. You only had like 14 points, Embiid. So the fact that, Giannis is almost like, to me, is, you can always learn. You never, personally, me, a good quote is, you never lose. You either learn or you win. And plain and simple. And so for the aspect of Giannis saying something like that, I like an NBA guy like that. Not letting his emotions react.
Well,
I'm not saying that you got to go to the extreme of Embiid and start calling people out, but like in that moment, he could have just taken some self ownership there and been like, yeah, you know what,
Wait.
I did fail, but I'm going to get better because of this.
You're both right. You're right in that if you look at every situation and go, well, we won or lost. And we lost.
There can only be one person right.
No, right.
But yes, like every loss is a learning opportunity to go, we could have done something better.
Right.
But you're also right that like when there's some people that are like, no, everything's fine. It's like, well, no, not everything's fine. It's like if Shaq and Kobe would have got together and they're like, wow, we're really talented, and they're like, we can't even make it out of the first round. It's like failure.
Yeah. If the Chiefs go out next year and the first round of the playoffs, they lose to the Tennessee Titans, on wild card weekend when they're the heavy favorites to win the Super Bowl, that's a failure.
Right. I think the learning aspect of it is I've heard people say, like, I just said with the Celtics, I said they should have won that series, but they didn't. And the bottom line of why they didn't is because they're too inconsistent. So it's like, even though I want to say on paper, yeah, they were the better team, it's like, well, they weren't the better team because they didn't perform well. Miami outperformed them. The better team always wins with any sport. The only flukish thing is like the NFL. You can say like we had an off game or this person was hurt.
Any given Sunday, but in NBA you get what 5 to 7 games.
Best of 7. So it's like if you lose, it's like even if Giannis was hurt, Miami still had so much talent. Like game 2, Giannis is hurt. He's not even playing. They blow Miami out of the water. So it's like you still had Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez, all the guys off their bench that could jack up threes. It's like they had enough.
How old is Brooke Lopez now?
34, I think.
Is it?
Is that
You're probably right. But yeah, he's been in the league since 2008. But yeah, I mean, thinking of like...
It just feels like him and his brother have been in the league
Right,
forever.
but if you join the NBA at, let's say, 19, which is probably what they were at, you do 1 year of college and then you bounce.
I could be, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, 15 years. Yeah, probably 34, 35. Yeah.
What's his brother's name?
Robin Lopez, yeah. So Brooke, I mean, not to get into this, but he's going to be a free agent, and I think he's just going to go the highest bidder because I think Brooke Lopez has a lot of value as he literally went second in defensive.
Good call, 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second, was second in defensive player of the year at 35 basically, and he still can make threes, and he can. The Heat almost lost a lot of those games in the sense of they didn't have an answer for stopping Brooke Lopez at the rim, but.
Well, and then once again, it's like we turn back the clock, this and that, and a guy like him, yeah, I remember him being in the league, you know what I'm saying, and being once again, another
Who?
top 5 pick, Brooke Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He was a beast down low.
And so, yeah, you almost.
Where did they come out of? UCLA?
Stanford.
Standard. Yeah.
Both of them came out
Yep.
of Stanford,
Yeah.
too. Which I would
Same
like,
draft.
Yeah, I would like to see them reunite this and that.
They're twins, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were on the same team because Robin Lopez was on the Bucks a few years ago, but
Yeah.
I don't think that was their championship team. I don't think.
No.
Yeah,
Still not the greatest twin duo in the NBA, the Morris twins.
another Kansas
Who?
reference. Another You mean
Never heard of him.
You mean one of those brothers that started crap with Jokic and was like, "I'm just gonna like truck you," and hey, that was a basketball play. Yeah, it's all good.
I love that story because it was like, yeah, the stereotypical like American, like, yeah, I'm an American and I'm tough, and then it was all like some European like third country that was
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You don't know what tough is.
Yeah,
you don't know what tough
he's
is.
like
It's like Rocky.
right, like because to Jokic, he's like there were people that just like tried to get on a bus to go to school every morning, and a bomb blew up in the city. It's
That's
like
what
so
I'm
shut
saying.
up.
It's like it was like, oh, I had to, yeah.
Stephen A. Smith can be like ridiculous about a lot of things, but when that happened, I just watched the video like a few days ago, just going back to it. But yeah, he went on air and was like, I just want to make this clear. He's like, we're not knocking the Morris twins' toughness. We all know they're tough, all that stuff. He's like, but there is a difference between your level of tough. He's like, and trust me, he's like, he does not want a problem with Jokic or his brothers. He's like, trust me on that.
Jokic he's just a funny character, man. Like, I'm sure you guys watched the post-game conference.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, are you excited for the parade? He's like, what day's the parade? Oh, it's on Wednesday. Oh my
He's like,
god!
I just wanna go.
wanna
Yeah, Serbia.
Michael Porter Jr. said he just wants to go back to his horses. That's all he talked
Yeah.
about. And like, I almost posted it on Facebook, but it was like Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron like all crying, and then you just see Jokic over there fucking just drinking a beer, just like straight face, like whatever.
He's
another
in
day
the
at
sheet.
office.
He's just like, I don't.
It's
Yeah,
another-
job's done. I go home.
He's one of the most unique characters I think we've ever had. Just of like how kind of what you said. A lot of
He's
these
not
people.
flashy.
Well, a lot of these people are like, "Oh, this is so emotional because this cements my legacy," and Jokic is like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, we want to change it. That's great."
When can I get a flight out of here?
It-
Yeah.
It's almost kind of nice because, yeah, you know what I'm saying, the flashiness and the, you know what I'm saying, knowing what to say, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it's almost like a good role model and almost like a teaching moment to see a guy like Jokic, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, yeah, he's going to do his job the best to his ability. And he's going to go to work every day and he's going to perform and he's going to, like I said, give 110%. But at the end of the day, it's almost like as if like this didn't, you know, rule his whole entire
No, he is.
world.
Yeah, it's bigger. Like
Yeah.
this is his job,
Yeah.
and that's how he treats it. It's his job.
And it's almost kind of a relief because a lot of these guys, yeah, you know, that this is all they do, and they, you know what I'm saying, they want to emphasize on their personality and say something and be, you know, in the limelight. And it seems like, yeah, we almost need a guy sometimes in sports that's just like shows up, does his job, doesn't talk a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He sets a good example. He's not in trouble. He's not John Moran.
Yeah, he's
you know
not
what
out
I'm
there
saying?
flashing guns.
And that's what I'm saying. It's almost kind of nice and a relief to see a guy that's just,
Well,
purely
it's like what-
passionate about what he's being paid to do, but then also cares about way more other things than just,
Yeah.
you know, the NBA.
It's and
It's
the
not
way
as- yeah, it's
the
not
way
as
that
like-
he won is the way that they teach kids to win. Like, act like you've been there before. Act like you've done this before. And he'd never done it before, but he acted like he's been there 3 or 4 times. Like, hey, just another day at the office, just another, season-ending party here. Like,
And there's nothing wrong with being emotional after you win the finals or win the Super Bowl or win the
Yeah,
World
especially,
Series.
I mean, you work your ass off to
Yeah.
get to that moment.
There's nothing wrong with that aspect, but in the same sense, just the way he went about it, it was almost like, okay, on to the next.
It was really cool to see that.
That's just personally to me. That's my aspect of looking at it sometimes. So
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the other guys out there that they just talk shit the whole time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we were gonna kick their ass," and
well, and everybody loves a good story. Everybody loves the rivalries, the competition, the smack talk, like what was it? Well, I can't remember his name, but for Memphis that talked about LeBron James and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
unless
what was that, Dylan?
Dylan Brooks or something."
Danis wasn't? No, that's the UFC fighter, isn't it?
I'll
Dylan
have to ask-
Danis.
I have to ask Border when he gets back, but
Yeah, he
just
was
that
talking
aspect.
shit on LeBron.
And you created a storyline. Because then, personally, me, when I took that and I saw that, I'm not a big LeBron fan. But when he said that about LeBron, it's all like, who are you?
Yeah, it's
Why
like,
are you talking?
first off, you don't get to talk about
Who's the guy that talked shit on LeBron that said, "Oh,
for Memphis.
I poke bears," and
Dylan, wasn't it Dylan something?
Oh yeah, Dylan Brooks. Yeah.
Dylan Brooks. Yeah.
And so that's what we were just talking about. Like sometimes you always might need that storyline. Like the same thing with like Kansas City and the Bengals. Even now, Jamar Chase saying "Pat who," and then Patrick comes back and says, "Yeah,
That's who."
That's who."
That was a knockout punch, man.
Sometimes you need that rivalry and that, like I said, that back and forth and that, that storyline to create something a little bit more than what really it is.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I saw that series and he had said that about LeBron, and it was all like, I'm not a huge LeBron fan. I don't ride him like a lot of people do. But in the same sense, when he said that, it was like, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was like, Jokic saying that, or even Jamal Murray,
So
like somebody who's
Like,
done
oh, this
something.
is juicy.
You guys
Here we
know how
go.
much Skip Bayless hates LeBron, right? He's made his whole
I don't watch it.
but he's made his whole career out of criticizing LeBron.
Really?
When that happened, he was like more outraged than Shannon was. He was just like, he's like, the audacity of this nobody to be calling out LeBron. He's like, where did you come from? What have you done? How many All-Stars have you made? Like, how many times have you averaged more than
Yeah,
20?
that'd be like, one of the backup Bengals players being like, "Oh yeah, Patrick who?"
But
I wouldn't put it past him.
But it's in the same sense of like us as like like viewers, like used to place everything on that aspect. Like I said, I'm not riding the coattails of LeBron, but I have the the wherewithal and the know-it-all to know that hey,
Yeah.
LeBron's great.
You respect
know what
the
I'm saying?
greatness.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I hate this fighter, I hate this player, like Brady or something, but you know they're great.
But
Yeah.
you would have also been the same way, if we grew up, a little bit earlier and we were this age in like the Michael Jordan era, you probably would be the same
Right.
way. Like, I'm not going to be on his jock like everybody else
Well,
is. Yes, he's great.
And there's a difference. You can, like you said, like you can not suck up to him and not try to like make friendly conversation with him, but at the same time, like they're in that series with Memphis. Desmond Bain never like sucked up to LeBron.
Right.
He was playing him hard, but every time that one of those two guys would fall, LeBron or Desmond Bain, they'd help each other up, and it wasn't like I'm in awe of you. It just LeBron saw in Desmond Bain, he goes, he ain't backing down. He's making threes. He's not. But he wasn't talking crap to him. He wasn't like, you're nothing, Bron. You don't, if you don't put 40
And
on me.
vice versa. Bron's
Yeah.
never going to go out there and, like I said, go
It's like,
out
oh, you didn't put 40 on me, but you put 37 on me.
Right.
So I win.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the Memphis games or something like that where it was a collision, and LeBron, I think it was either Dylan Brooks or somebody was mouthing off, and LeBron finally got upset and said, "No." He's like, "This ain't basketball no more. This is shit talking." He's like, "I'm."
Oh, that was like early in the regular season.
He's
He
like,
said
"I'm
that.
done with this.
Yeah,
I'm done."
he
with
goes,
this."
y'all haven't done anything, and y'all just sit here and talk.
Yeah, and like I said, when you poke the bear like that, it's like, like I get it. It makes for a good story, blah blah blah. But in the same sense, to go back to, it's like Brady in our timeline. We're not Patriots fans, but we
but
do
you
Brady
respect
was-
that.
Yeah, but
Well,
you respect.
and that's the thing. I grew up
Right?
like most of us. I think we despise the Patriots because we're tired of their winning and the
Yeah.
like, scandals and everything like that. But yes, it's like I'm not going to sit up here and be like Brady didn't accomplish anything. I could say this: if it weren't for Bill Belichick, would they have won the first three? Because Brady wasn't that good at that time. He was more of a game manager, make clutch throws, but he was not.
He's
guy.
not the Brady that he grew into.
Right.
Yeah.
The later championships, they mainly won, I thought, because of Brady's.
Because of Brady and the offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So
and that's the thing where I think like we can all like there's never a time where you're just like the ignorance of hating someone just to hate someone. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like there's no point, you know what I'm saying? It's like when Larry Bird or like you said, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, all these guys, you know what I'm saying, they just hate them because they're good and
Yeah.
successful. It's all like that doesn't make sense. You know what I'm
No.
saying? You might hate someone because it's in your division, it's in your, you know what I'm saying, conference.
For me, it's
Yeah.
like it's their attitude of like how they carry themselves, and like so for me in the NBA, guys that I despise. I used to despise Curry, but it was back like when he'd do the shimmy shake after every play, and like everyone was just like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen anybody like Steph Curry." He's won 4 championships now, and that last one that they just won really cemented. I don't need Kevin Durant to win a championship. I just did it by myself.
Yeah.
Well, not by myself, but
And while you don't like him, you
I respect
him.
correct.
So before getting off the rails and going too long, I will say this, and I thought it's a very good conversation. We brought it up one time, and I think we all were different paths on it. But personally, and I'll bring it back to like what I said. I think Curry's changed the game more than LeBron has.
110%.
The way that it's played, yes.
Yes.
But if you're asking me still who's going to have a bigger impact on basketball as far as like what they actually accomplished, LeBron has accomplished more. To make it to 10 finals and win 4 of them.
And to win a one in Cleveland.
Well, and that's the thing. You are right that now we can look at Steph and be like, he really can carry a team and like basically put everyone on his back and do it.
Well, then,
But-
like I said, it's not like talking about like Peyton Manning or something like that, or even just that aspect. It's not. We're not talking about and I think that's where like the spectrum of like the differences and why people actually are able to compete and make the comparison, because Brady didn't change the game.
No. He just
You know what I'm
did
saying?
what everybody else was doing better.
But then there's guys like on Mahomes, where it's like Mahomes
Changed
is
the game.
changing the game.
Yes.
Mahomes is
better?
He's changing the way that the quarterback position has ever been played.
Mahomes is showing if you have superior arm talent and you're willing to be coached and you can pick up on stuff, basically you can make it work. The thing that to me, and this is talking about football, and that's fine, we can go back and forth. What makes Mahomes so special, obviously, yes, arm talent. If you don't have the arm talent, that's not work. If you don't have the size to take hits, it won't work. But it's the coachability. There's all these guys that get egos, and they're like, they become a headache for the coaches, and they be out. If Mahomes had the personality of Jamarcus Russell, obviously he would have been out to begin with, but it wouldn't work. I mean, it just wouldn't work. The fact that he's humble enough, he's confident in himself,
Yes.
but if Andy Reid says, Patrick, you fucked up that play, man. I mean, I'm sorry, but you didn't see that guy, and you threw it. Like, Patrick's going to be like, you're right, coach. Like, you're right. I'm sorry. Like,
But the way that Mahomes and Curry like correlate, and overlap with one another is the way that they've changed the game, because
and they're both light skinned. I mean, that's why people.
that's a shot.
No, people make that connection all the time, and I notice it's like with Jokic, they only compare him to Dirk of the past, and it's like, oh, because they're both white.
Oh man, it's June. Gee.
People,
But with Mahomes, like, you know, all the arm strength, all of the mobility, all of that stuff. Like, we've seen guys like that before. What Mahomes does differently than any other quarterback that's ever played the game, and now guys are trying to emulate it, is that he throws. His footwork just doesn't matter to him. He'll throw off of any platform.
Rodgers does that.
But not to the. I mean, Mahomes does it on different levels. You don't see those plays where, you know, Mahomes.
Rodgers is just too afraid to take those chances that Mahomes will be like, yeah, I can do it.
Yes, he's a risk taker, but they're all calculated. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like the throw against Denver where he just kind of like is on the sideline,
Yeah.
one-footed, and flips it off to
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon for a touchdown. Or the play against Tampa Bay where
Or throwing it with your left hand.
left hand. Yeah, like nobody does that shit. And the same with Curry. Before Curry came into the league, nobody
Ray Allen was the best 3-point shooter.
Yeah, but nobody. Ray Allen was not taking three-pointers
because Ray Allen couldn't do it
almost
off
half court.
And Ray Allen wasn't doing it off the dribble. He was like, you know, get me in rhythm and I can do it. Or
Steph would just like, you know, 3 steps past half court and like nobody's there. He's like, fuck it, I'm gonna shoot that.
That's the only thing is I'll admit. Is I don't know how many videos I've seen where Steve Kerr's like grabbing his hair and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then Curry makes a 3 at half court or something, and then it's all like, "Okay, whatever."
yeah, because
It's like, okay.
if Steph couldn't shoot off the dribble, if he had to like get it where like coming around a pick every time, I think the Warriors maybe win one championship. But like, I'm sorry, but you lose the special if you become like, you know, think about it. Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, they were great players, and Reggie probably could do it a little more off the dribble than Ray could. But like, you need. What makes Steph so special is the fact that you can pick him up, but it's like, oh, I picked you up at the 3-point line, but here you are, like just like you said, 35-footer or something like that.
You're talking about those hair pulling moments. I'm sure Reed had the same, you know, for several years where Mahomes rolls to his right and throws all the way back to his left. Reed's probably sitting there like, no, what are you doing? And then it's a touchdown.
He loved Brett Favre. And
He's like, all right.
he saw the
let her
next.
go.
He saw the next Brett Favre, and he was like, "I'm taking." And obviously, Pat's better than Brett
Jeff,
Favre.
you got something.
One more statement, and then to bring it back. But yeah, like we said, you know what I'm saying, the era that we got kind of brought up in, you know, Ray Allen's the greatest shooter, and it was always the come off the pick, stop, pop, shoot guy.
Your classic
Yeah,
3-point shooter.
like I said, Curry's just on a whole nother level, like you said, off the dribble and just be able to do this.
And now he's worked on so many other things of like now if you stop the 3-point shot, he can drive to the basket. And I don't remember the last time Steph. He did it maybe a few times in the playoffs, but overall he's become so great at getting into the paint and scoring and making it. I mean,
I don't think it's as good as when he was in his prime, but yeah, just the ball movement, off the
And
dribble.
what's so cool is
little
he came
things
from
like
that small school Davidson.
Yeah.
Like nobody believed in him.
and he had his dad, so you would have thought that someone would have bigger school would have given him a shot.
Well, I think he got an offer from Duke.
And turned it down.
Yeah, after.
His brother Seth went to Duke.
Yeah, but I think he also had an offer, but it was.
He wanted to stay loyal to Davidson because they gave him that first shot.
Yeah, because it was a transfer
Yeah.
to Duke.
You said something just now, and I don't want to linger on this too long, but you said when Steph was in his prime. I would make the argument, and the NBA has kind of changed in the last 7 years or whatever, but I would make the argument this is the best that I've seen in these last couple of years because he's gotten stronger. He can take more physical contact than he used to. I feel like his 3-point shot is just as good as it used to be. And now it's like I said, back in the day, you could kind of drive him off the 3-point line and you'd be like, okay, Steph, he might make some layups, but we could kind of like guard that. Now, I mean, it's not Kyrie level of making ridiculous stuff, but it's pretty damn good. So that's why I have to, even more respect I have for him because when you thought he really couldn't get better, he got better.
I think the reason why he's gotten better is because now he's smarter.
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure,
my
for
aspect,
sure.
Because like I said, when I used to see him being a little bit younger, he would drive and always do that
Yeah.
floater,
That little, yeah.
into the lane, which he still does. But I think now he just has more.
He finishes more.
He's more of the awareness
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like I said, like we talked about Draymond Green earlier. That's the only thing I will give Draymond is that, you know what I'm saying, out of every single NBA player in the NBA right now, he's probably top 3 of the most smartest players on the court. Draymond Green.
I think he's good at knowing what other teams are running and knowing how to guard it. And I'm not saying, obviously, I've never played like professional basketball, but I
You
would say
haven't?
no. But what I notice in Draymond that I think I don't have the range of like
This is news to
length of
That's a
arms.
shot.
I don't have the length of arms and the size that Draymond has. But what I was always good at on defense,
Yeah,
and
me
I
either.
noticed that not everyone did it, was knowing like when you're guarding, like if I was guarding 2 people, someone coming driving this way, someone driving this way with the ball, I knew the perfect time of like. I know when to fake to go to this guy because I knew that this guy wanted to pass and then he has to go up to it the last second. Draymond's so smart at knowing, okay, I know exactly what they're going to try to do. I know exactly when to move my feet. I know when to help on this guy. I know when to cover this guy solo. He's really good at that.
Yeah.
That's what makes him special, in my opinion.
Like I said, like if it was on NBA 2K, like I told Caleb earlier, his offense and defense, obviously defense I think more than offense, but it has to be borderline like a 99, 99. Just his awareness of where to be, how to facilitate, like you said, how to read plays, you know what I'm saying, what the other team's trying to run, so on and
He's
so forth.
very basketball smart, very
Yeah.
high IQ.
And you don't need the necessary. That's why and I don't fault him for trying to get the supermax contract because in the same sense, yeah, if it wasn't
So
for
hold
him,
that thought for a minute. What I would like to do, if you guys are good with this, let's take a
Real
little
quick?
a little break, and then
Okay.
we'll come back, and I've got some rapid fire questions, NBA style for you.
Okay.
I like that. I like that.
I do have two like major points, or I say major. I want to definitely address them for NBA. So okay, we'll do
Yeah.
that. We'll take a break and we'll come back.
Sounds good.
All right.